So I wanted to go back also because I remember you telling me a story about when you were in high school. You kind of just resisted. You used the metaphor of being a boulder in the stream. You were just like hunkered down, and you're not going to do what you were being told that you should do to get to where you want to go, and you just were fighting it and resisting it. Tell us about that shift. How you were able to. Do you remember when you said that, A, and B, do you remember how you decided to go with the flow and start to listen to what, there are rules for a reason, and people say don't use drugs or alcohol for a reason, keep yourself organized for a reason, and we all, be on time for a reason, and, you were resisting that, and then you made a shift. Was that a commitment to yourself? Was it, do you remember?
I do remember the boulder in the stream, resisting, really just not happy. And I think that created a lot of unhappiness. I think that the big shift was just like surrendering it all. Being like, you know what? These are the things that I want. This is the life that I want. And it maybe doesn't reflect the life that I have right now, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to just put this into the hands of the universe or God or, whatever, and just see where it leads me.
So you surrendered at that point.
You have to, I think that once I surrendered, I lost my expectation for things to be the way, exactly how I envisioned them. I remember, for instance, an example of this was I had this internship lined up with Beats by Dre, and I had this other internship lined up with Crispin Porter and Bogusky, and nothing was really manifesting with Beats. And I remember at the time I was like, I want to work for Beats. Why isn't the Beats thing working? I want to work for Beats by Dre. That's so cool.
You were freaking out.
And I was freaking out. But I look back at it now, and his internship with Crispin Porter and Bogusky came up, and I'm just counting my blessings because
such good training.
It was the most phenomenal experience, and it laid a foundation for my career.
And again, just to sum up, I think that from my perspective, the reason not only did you learn incredible skill sets that you are using today in your company, you also were surrounded by people who really you wanted to be like.
Yeah, and they believed in me.
And they did believe.
They believed in me, and they believed in me enough to hire me. So they hired me, out of the internship.
Yeah.
And I was faced with this decision: am I going to go back to Berkeley and be a student, or am I going to just ride this wave and see where it takes me? And I picked the latter.
Yeah.
I decided
which was a little tricky for me.
Yeah.
To let go, but I think that part of why I was okay for you to do that was because I believed that you were going to do. I could sense your commitment. You weren't going to go home and sit on the couch and not grow. And I felt like you were ready for the challenge. You really wanted this challenge, and you could see that it was totally you. Whereas the other internship it wasn't obviously going to happen. It just wasn't lined up with, and it worked out so great.
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with amazing people was amazing. Was a really big turning point for you too.
Yeah, it was until I outgrew.
Yeah, until it was time to move.
My situation.
Yeah, so you outgrew your situation, and then you felt like you were ready to start your own company.
Yeah, and my passion changed.
And your passion changed. Tell us about that.
So my passion started off as I thought I was going to be an ad man, right? Like I was like, I'm working for this big shot agency, all these good looking, attractive people and smart and super, articulate and intellectual and the intellectual elite and the whole thing. And then at some point I started to work on a food account at the agency, and I realized that I love food.
You have always loved food.
I did love food, and I realized that I was just obsessed with food brands. At first, it was just brands in general. At the agency, it was just brands. It was like, how do you make brands famous? And then I was like, but I'm passionate about food brands.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like kind of started broad, and then I narrowed it, and I realized that I was surrounded by all these brilliant people, but they were agency people.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be a food person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, how do I do that?
Good question. Yeah. Well, it's funny because part of my coaching program, I always have my young adults go back and talk to their parents about things that their parents remember that they loved when they were younger and would just do for hours. And I just remember you being so into, and I didn't know this at the time. I think you were 10 years old, and you were doing something for school, and we were looking up different companies and their mission statements. And I remember we were on Hershey's, and we were on what was the one that you ended up loving?
Well, General Mills.
Yeah, General Mills. And you were like, I want to work for that company because you loved their mission statement, and somehow it just aligned with your soul at the 10-year-old time. And so I just think for parents, I think it's a really important thing. It's to go back and remember what what you guys love when you're little and what you are sort of naturally good at.
Yeah. Well, and I take that back to, it kind of comes full circle. It's like this shift in my life was tricky because I had this identity of, I'm going to be this ad man, this big shot ad man, working with the best of the business, to being like, okay, wait, you're kind of the dorky food guy, it was a repeat in my workplace as it was in college, where it was like, I'm this big shot, water polo, cool jock.
Trying to be something you're not.
Trying to be something I'm not, to being like, no, you're just kind of this, fun, quirky, sweet, loving guy, and then same thing. And so it kind of came full circle. And then I decided to put it all on the line again and give you a call and said, I'm leaving the agency and I'm starting my own company.
Yeah, that was a big one too. You like to put me through the ringer. Like, are you sure? But yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to, I think what I see that has really, been those huge shifts for you is listening to what you love to do, figuring out how to develop skill sets in that area, and then 100% committing to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard for people to get to that place. So if you could share a little bit about what your 2 cents are.
I think a lot of my peers, people that are my age, have it's interesting because as a young person or a millennial or a Gen Z, I'm actually the oldest Gen Z. Around 1995 was when I was born. We have this belief, and I don't know where it comes from, but maybe it's because we have so many options, but we have this belief that if you pick one thing, you're going to limit yourself. Like, I'm going to have to, do this one thing forever. But I think there's a paradox and there's nuance there, because I know so many ways by just picking something, you free yourself. You don't become more constrained, you become more free because you have that thing. You've made a decision, and instead of, you're not dangling somewhere and dabbling around and floating through life. It's like, no, you're taking charge of life. And I think there's a lot of freedom there. And then you get to build more skill sets and become the best and become an expert and reap the rewards of what that feels like. For someone to start as a young adult, you could go from this, childlike, student-like person that, is learning, to people asking you questions like, hey, how did you create that? And that doesn't come from meandering through life and taking left turn and then right turn and left turn and then right turn. You gotta pick a lane. And I think that my advice would be, don't fear that change and start broad, and pick something that's broad, like an ad agency or, a construction company or something like that, where you can then find something within that industry that you like even more than what the industry is as a broad perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I narrow it down to what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you pick what you're interested in, and then when you're interested in that area, then you can get really specific in that area what you love to do the most.
That's right. It's don't expect to find it right away.
Right.
Just start.
Yeah.
Because the key to getting ahead is starting.
Yeah. And I think that comes from committing to yourself.
Yeah, you have to commit, and you have to commit. And a commitment to me is like, there's no going back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just, it's not a decision. You haven't made a decision. If you're like, hey, I'm going to try to, be a construction guru. And then you're like, maybe I'm going to be an interior designer. Maybe you gotta commit and be like, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ride this out until everything is exhausted.
Yeah, just narrowing it down into what you
know.
Yeah.
And then you have your niche.
So, for the parents out there, what advice could you give them to, help their young adult to find what you have found?
I think looking back at my childhood, and maybe I'm moving out of being a young adult a little bit. Today is my 24th birthday, so maybe I've got one more year. I don't know what you declare as a young adult, but I think the advice that I would have is, you and Dad always created a very creative environment where me, Haddon and Cord, brother and sister, were able to just tinker, and you always encouraged and created room for possibility, and you didn't try to shift me one direction, right? Like, there was no red tape, like, oh, don't be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
There was no red tape.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents say, oh, you couldn't make money doing that, or whatever that is. There was never any of that. Now, I picked a career path that I could make a lot of money doing, but there was always this room for me to kind of find myself,
explore,
and create,
and make mistakes.
Yeah, and make things.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like take what's existing and regurgitate information. It was like, you guys created an environment where you wanted us to take nothing and turn it into something.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one last thing, I'm glad that we did that. I didn't know, but I guess I did. I did know that. I really was kind of fascinated by what you guys loved when you were little, and I always wanted to encourage you to explore more of that, because I figured there's something in there that was really the way your mind works.
Yeah, you pushed on it.
Yeah.
If you found something that interests us, you would push on that and challenge us and say, hey, what about that? Or why? Or how can that lead to this? Or what is the next step?
What is it in that do you love? And, so yeah, it's been fun to watch you and your brother and sister really find their thing. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm glad I have, been able to watch you just really blossom, and I love also that, when you were at your lowest point, you were a sophomore in college, and that was hard to see. You were really not at your, not feeling great about things and feeling lost. And you were really open to, I remember you called me up and you're like, Mom, I'm not good. Can you coach me?
Yeah.
And I was really so excited, because I didn't want to push that on you. But I was so excited that you were seeking to find the answers, seeking for the help that you needed to get the clarity that you really desperately wanted. So I, as a parent, would say that as watching you develop, that probably the the biggest part of your success, in my perspective, is your openness to understand yourself, understand your place in the world, understand that you're part of something bigger, and understand that you really had a lot to learn, and that was okay. You weren't ashamed of that. You were like, I just want to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be stuck. I want to learn what I need to learn. And so just coach me. You said, just coach me, Mom. I just need, and you listened to every word I said. And it was incredibly gratifying.
Well, it wasn't necessarily you just saying things to me. Again, it was you pushing on things and asking me questions about why I'm feeling a certain way. And it got me clear.
Yeah, well, asking yourself good questions is really important.
And I think that I would second that. I think that coachability and the willingness to look at yourself and look at the circumstances that you have and own that and be like, okay, I got myself here. I need help.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, I need help.
Yeah, and being okay with like needing help.
Yeah.
And then just committing to finding the resources.
Yeah, it's interesting because people think that when you say I need help, it means there's something wrong with you. Yeah. Which, that's totally not the case. Yeah. It's just that you have a little bit of a blind spot here and there, and with proper training, you can those blinders get removed, and you can start to see where you need to go. And I think that was, for me, watching you was the number one thing that has gotten you to the success level that you are now at such a young age, is just being open to being, like you said, being coachable.
Yeah, and accepting discipline. I think that coaching does not come without discipline
and accountability.
And you have to do the things that are required to get to the next level, and you have to, and they're not easy.
They're not easy, but that's the other thing. This block is that people think that, I'm going to lose so much if I work that hard.
Yeah.
What do you say about that? Because I have a lot to say about that, but I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
I think that as a young adult or a young person, just do it, just do it and see if you like it. I think that
it's a commitment though.
Yeah. And but it always works better. I think that that's something that rules are in place for a reason. When you buy a new piece of furniture, it comes with directions, and you need to follow the directions.
Putting the furniture
and they're not there to like piss you off. They're there to help you. And I think that that's something that I did commit to early on, was like finding the best resources that had the best systems or the best, ways of waking up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And just like adopting those and testing them out, testing out, what if I do this in the morning? Am I going to have a better day on average? Yeah. And that's an extra 15 minutes out of my morning that I could spend watching the news or sleeping, but does it work?
Well, and the thing that I found, the thing that I have so much to say about it, is that it seems like it's hard at first because it's new and then you're doing some new things, but then all of a sudden life becomes so much easier when you actually do them. Just like you said, the furniture, it's going to stay standing upright if you follow the directions.
Yeah.
When you follow the coaching, directions, life is so much easier. I mean, it takes a while to assemble everything, and then once it's there, it's solid.
Yep. Yep. And I think that is what coaching gives you. It gives you the access to the resources, the people that have the tools and the strategies for solving your own problems, mm-hmm. and putting new habits that are going to condition you to feel good. I mean, not even like success. Like, I think that a lot of people talk about success, and I think success is great. It's very arbitrary. And so what success means to, one person, I think doesn't necessarily mean to the other. But what coaching does, it conditions you to feel good.
Yeah.
All the time. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is possible to feel good, or at least be grateful, all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
And but it's not going to happen naturally. I look back and, when I was going through those hard times, I was, 18 years old, and I'm 24 now. So it's been 6 years of work, and I'm in a very different place than I was back then. A lot better place. I'm very thankful to be in a better place, but it didn't come naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't leave high school
Naturally
knowing all these things.
Yeah.
It came from a desire to learn, and to learn from the best. I think that's another thing, is I didn't want to go and find, just anybody's advice. I wanted to go and find the best.
I love that. That's good. I'm glad you thought I was the best.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate
You're
that.
the best.
Thanks. Well, it's been really, really nice
Yeah.
talking to you, and happy birthday again.
Thank you.
And appreciate you sharing, the vulnerable parts of your life and how you overcame those, and how you committed to yourself and found your passion. And I just really hope that, we can help some of these parents help their son or daughters to be able to experience life the way.
Well, I don't know if I was any help, but I know that you.
Well, you're a huge help today,
Good.
because it's helpful for parents to understand what you guys are going through and how you guys can actually overcome some of these struggles that you're facing, and with proper training, brain training,
Yep.
proper brain training really helps. So just really appreciate you
Yeah.
for coming today. So
Yeah.
hope you have a great birthday.
Thank you.
I was asleep.